everyone, to this next episode of Coffee with Sales Engineers. Today, it's exciting because it's not just coffee with sales engineers, it's people that are actually helping sales engineers around the globe, not just getting new people, new professionals into sales engineering profession, but also helping sales engineers achieve the best potential career they can have. So I'm so excited to have Better Career on this podcast. Welcome, Yuji and Mattie, to the podcast. Would love an introduction from both of you. Yuji, if you want to start first. And then I've got some really juicy questions for both of you.
All right, excited to get into it. But yeah, thanks for having me, Sachin. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. So my name's Yuji Higashi. I am a co-founder of Better Career currently, which is a coaching program that we offer to help SEs and AEs. And we'll get a little bit more into what that is and what we do. But prior to that, I co-founded Pre-Sales Collective and also Pre-Sales Academy. And so I've been very involved in helping build the pre-sales community broadly around the globe. And before I did that full time, I actually led a global pre-sales team at a company called Outreach based in Seattle. I did that for about 5 years before eventually moving full time into running and growing Pre-Sales Collective and Pre-Sales Academy. So that's a little about me.
Thanks so much for having us, Sachin. I'm Mattie Stremic. I'm based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And I have what I like to say, I've been on all sides of the career conversation. So I've done recruiting, I've built hiring processes as an HR program manager. I've done HR research into hiring practices and biases. I stumbled into pre-sales for a period of time and then ended up on the enablement side with Yuji, where I joined Pre-Sales Collective and got to lead the academy there, helping folks from all different backgrounds break into tech and also lead some of our enablement programs around helping pre-sales professionals like grow and advance their careers. So just really excited to talk about, pre-sales and just, the career landscape today.
I'm such a big fan of both of you, and what an amazing job you guys are doing. And for anybody listening, if you don't, all you got to do is follow Better Career on LinkedIn, because I can tell you every time you guys post your success factors, which is like every week, new person getting hired. What I love about these posts, guys, is not that I see a lot of positions like, oh, there's new positions, these companies are hiring SEs, or this person just got a new role. But you talk about the journey, you talk about the success, you talk about SEs who are shifting and growing their OTE or their base in a significant way. So I think the success that your clients are achieving is the answer that so many of us have been looking for, because I've been an SE, I've been an SE leader, I've had my share of looking for jobs. And, most people find jobs through personal connections. And if you haven't looked for a lot of jobs, you realize that it's a very lonely game, and it's scary, especially in this environment. And what I hear from those success and of course, working with you guys, you're there with each candidate, helping them along that journey. It's probably one of the most vulnerable aspects of everybody's professional life. So really, the difference you guys are making in each of those individuals' lives is amazing. And the difference you're making in the broader SE community, truly appreciate it. I admire it from the sidelines. Very proud of you guys. So my first question, Yuji, is to you, because as you mentioned, you were in Pre-Sales Collective. There's so many careers you guys can go into, but what inspired you to start Better Career? And in addition to everything I said, what's your perspective on how it's helping the broader SE community?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think just to take a few steps back in my career, or going back to Pre-Sales Collective, or even back to when I was managing SEs, one thing I really enjoyed doing was just mentoring and coaching individuals and helping them grow in their careers. And I just happened to be doing that for a solution consulting or sales engineering team. And then so what happened was the next iteration of that was really building out Pre-Sales Collective, where I was able to do that across the globe and at scale and really help connect people and, again, give people a place where they could create connection and learn and take that next step in their career, because that hadn't really existed prior to that community taking place or taking form. And now with Better Career, it's really just kind of the next iteration, I think, of our passion for helping people in their careers. Because what we realize, even with building out the community, there hasn't been a service or a program or anything related to helping people on an individual basis. So really coaching people specifically within sales engineering roles and sales roles. There hasn't something like that hasn't existed. And so that's the gap that we saw when we created Better Careers, that people just weren't getting the support they needed when they're looking for that next job or getting that promotion internally, maybe if they don't have support internally from a mentor or coach. And with the tech market evolving and also being a bit of a challenging market over the past few years, what's really also driven us to help even more people and kind of adjust how we look at the coaching programs that we run is just the challenging job market that it has existed. A lot of people have been laid off. A lot of people have been really challenged in getting new roles. And so a lot of what we do is help coach people in making sure that they understand what value they bring to the table and really helping them market themselves in a really effective way so that they can go and get those jobs that they deserve, that they have experience for, and maybe they're just not positioning themselves in the best way possible. And so that's kind of the backstory and how we've evolved into this program. But a lot of what we do right now is really just focus on coaching SCs and helping them take that next step or getting that next job. And it's something that we've gotten pretty good at, but we also really just enjoy doing it day in, day out.
Remember when you and I connected, there was a time when, we were using Meetup to like try to bring some local communities together. So we have come a long way. And you're spot on. I think in this environment, the good thing is there are more SCs than there ever before. More companies are recognizing that they need SCs than ever before. But that creates this challenge of the demand and supply. And I think a lot of the SCs kind of struggle in identifying, where to apply, when to apply. There wasn't really a lot of information around, if I've been an SC for 4 years and I haven't been promoted to senior SC, is that okay? Like, are there senior SC jobs outside that I should be looking for? If it is, who should I even go talk to? Like, these are the questions that I think you guys are creating an environment to say, come talk to us. We can at least provide you insights into what we're seeing and things like that. So I love the very unique point of view because of your personalized approach. You guys are not just looking at, a dashboard saying 1,000 people applied, these many people got interviews, like that's just metrics, but you have personal experience supporting these candidates through their journey. I'm curious if there are trends that you're observing, and I would love to bring those trends on this podcast. And first question is, you see side by side these SCs, super smart SCs that are applying for these roles. What are you observing that they're struggling the most with? What do SCs struggle the most with getting the right jobs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sachin. So one of the things, probably the most common phrase that we hear when we have conversations with folks initially is, I've never actually had to look for a job. I've never had to find a job. It always came to me. So it came to me through my network or the recruiter, or many recruiters came to me trying to, get me on board. And so you have a lot of folks that either they were laid off or they're thinking about being strategic about their next career move, and they're entering this job market that is kind of nothing like we've seen previously, in that referrals don't carry as much weight as they used to. Thousands of applications per every role. I mean, we speak to hiring managers all the time that say within hours, they have hundreds of applications. And yes, many of them are, not qualified, but there are a ton of high quality SEs that are in the job market. And so you're not only just competing against a bunch of people, but, people with really great experience. And we even have like a lot of leaders that are now going for IC roles. And so now if you're an IC going for a regular role, you're competing against people that sometimes have 10 more years of experience than you. And so a huge component of it, it's a different market. It's a different game than what people have experienced previously. And there's not a lot of, great training or content around how to job search effectively. And it's not a core part of your job as an SC. And so there's a lot that folks typically struggle with, which is number one, it's just oversaturated. It's completely different. You can't just submit applications and expect to get interviews like you used to. A lot of times people could rely on their almost experience to speak for itself, submit an application, get an interview, knock it out of the park, and get the job. But that's just not the case with the volume of, candidates that we have in the market right now. Another piece that Yuji kind of referred to just a second ago was getting down to like the narrative. A lot of people struggle to really define their experience in a way that's going to resonate with pre-sales recruiters and hiring managers. As you know, pre-sales roles like vary the continuum of, how technical they are, like the focus, the skill sets even needed, that it can be really challenging for people to kind of bucket and define their experience in a way that's really impactful.
Yeah. I think kudos to the SCs you're talking to that are expressing that I never had to look for a job. Jobs just came to me. I mean, that to me just tells how sought out our profession is. And strong SCs, successful SCs, companies want them. I think to those SCs, and personally, I would probably say the same thing if I was asked that question. I think the challenge you realize is that even your friend or your previous chief revenue officer or VP of sales that pulled you in, if you're going to shift the role anyway, by not looking at what else is available in the market, you're probably missing out and leaving money on the table. So yes, even when you're sought out after and somebody's pulling you into that company, you got to look at the market to see what's available. So I love that. One of the things, Mattie, you mentioned about the narrative. As an SE leader, a common challenge that my team struggled with, the best SEs are the worst at self-promotion because their heart and mind are so much involved in solving the problem that how you package that solution, who you tell about what you've solved is the least of their worries. Now you bring that same super smart, super technical, genius individual into a job market where all you got to do is self-promote, right? And I can see how many of us struggle with that because we've just never had to deal with it. So that's a great point, and that's a great service that Better Career provides. So
one of the biggest things that we help people with, right? Like you said, like some of the best SEs, great experience that we work with, just have a hard time really self-marketing, self-promoting themselves. And so we really try to help them with that and provide them structure and give them confidence in doing so. And I think that's something that not only just helps them get the next job, but also carries them throughout their career, because at the end of the day, it's not about necessarily what you do always. It's about what's visible. It's about how you position yourself. It's about how you talk about the things that you've done. And so, a lot of what we're helping folks is not just getting that next job, but also taking the further steps in their career. So yeah, it's a big part
I
of it.
love what you guys say on your website, right? It's you are the product and you're the salesperson. It's the first time SEs get to play the AE role as well, not just SEs.
Exactly.
Now, another thing I observe, which again, through this podcast, the purpose and vision of this podcast is because I try to bring, people from very varying backgrounds. So, school teachers, chefs, bartenders, right? That would have never figured out that they could be great SCs until it fell into their lap or through some connection. And now they are having a very fulfilling profession. And the vision is that I do believe that, people should come from all other professions into sales engineering if they've got all the recipes and the ingredients that we talk about. Now, you guys attract a whole bunch of transfers. Are there trends that you're observing? Is there a certain vertical or segment that a lot of wannabe SEs come from? Any trends there to share?
Yeah, so we've definitely seen folks all across the board. I mean, yeah, you name it, real estate agents, teachers, and we'll say teachers probably make some of the best SCs, but that's for another time. But some of the key, trends, and truthfully, usually the people that we work with come from either of two buckets, one of which is more of a sales background. So that looks like, like your BDRs, your SDRs. Sometimes it's from like a non-tech sales role as well. And so they've got really strong soft skills, and then we're really working with them to upskill on the more technical side. And then on the other end of that, you have our developers and engineers who are, really smart. They've, grown their careers and realized that they don't want to be behind a computer all day and not talk to people, and that they really enjoy talking to people. So those are kind of like the two main categories that we see as kind of like highly technical developers, engineers, and then folks in other types of sales roles.
That's awesome. You mentioned teachers. I love that. Teachers absolutely make great SEs. The other category that I observed is musicians or anybody that was in performance, because every demo is a performance. And so if you know how to win an audience, how to hook into the audience, how to engage with the audience, like that skill is so transferable to sales engineering that a lot of people don't take it for granted. I've also wanted, and recently something I've started, I'm trying to figure out how to get in front of graduating classes at universities of engineering and computer science programs. Right at the moment when these kids are thinking about where they're going to apply for jobs, I want to find a way that we educate them on sales engineering. For majority of them, that may not be the path. They may look at my presentation and say, that I don't want to do. And that's perfect. But for others, it may light a spark to say, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that. So anyway, I'll keep you guys posted on how I progress there. One more question. You've seen, as I mentioned, so much success with SEs applying for these positions, working their way through multiple panel presentations, demos sometimes. What are top 3 qualities that you have observed that gets an SC the best offer they can get?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in first and then maybe Yuji has some more to add. But there's, a few key things because, we work with a lot of, different folks with different strengths. But what we see time and time again, both in how fast it takes someone to land an offer and in the quality and overall compensation of their offer, it comes down to like number one, commitment. So their drive and ability to take initiative. Number 2 is their confidence, which is really made possible through their preparation. And then 3 gets into coachability. Get into all like 3 of these, going back to, initiative. Those are the people that are very proactive. And from the coaching point of view, those are the people that are knocking on our door versus us having to go and knock on their door to be, check in. They're coming out and leveraging us. They are, going above and beyond and taking ownership. We always talk about, the job search process like a sales process, and they are like an AE that is on top of like their opportunities, their, forecasting, they're managing it very much like a sales process. And so I would say that's really critical. Second piece, going back to that confidence, it's all rooted in preparation. And because you can fake confidence and, there's a lot of SEs that can wing it. I mean, there's a reason why, but the problem is the job market is just too competitive for you to wing it and do good. You have to go above and beyond. You have to knock it out of the park or else you're just not going to get the offer because someone else is doing that. And so that confidence made possible through like really reflecting on the wins and prep. And then last one, going back to the coachability, that's really coming down to not only do you want feedback, but you proactively ask for it and you also proactively share it. Those are kind of some key things that we see like time and time again. Those are the A players getting, just incredible job offers.
Yuji, would you add anything else?
Yeah, maybe just a slightly different addition or angle on some of these. As a former hiring manager who's hired dozens of SCs before and certainly interviewed a lot of people, that the way I would think of, or try to help the clients we work with think about it is how do you make this manager's life easier and better as they hire you? And some ways to do that is show them you take initiative, show them you're a self-starter, show them you're going to own and be a driver of your own self-development and learning, rather than waiting for them to tell you how to learn or what to do or what course to take or waiting for the new hire onboarding. So what we have our clients do is create some variation of a pre-ramp plan. So before you even start in the role, here are the things that you're already doing and going to finish doing before you even start on your first day. And that shows a level of self-starter and proactivity that most candidates aren't doing. And as a hiring manager, that I love seeing that because that means, again, I'm not going to have to put a ton of energy into dragging you through a ramp plan as a new hire. So that's just one of the other things that is very important. And then as Mattie mentioned, the other thing that you can't really get around, especially in this type of customer facing role is interviews, is live conversations. You have to be really good at that. And what we find is that just like doing a good demo, it takes a lot of practice to get really good at nailing a demo. And so you should spend the same amount of time getting ready for your interviews, not just on drafting your responses on paper, but actually delivering them. Like what kind of tone and energy and enthusiasm do you put behind your responses so that they come across confidently and they can feel that energy, radiate from you and that confidence radiate from you. That's very important. And so there's a huge emphasis we put on just getting the reps in, getting the practice in to make sure that you're showing up to these conversations in a very strong way. Because that's ultimately how you get hired is if you demonstrate that you can, tell a good story confidently and articulate your experience in a strong way.
And that's how you ultimately close a deal. I mean, if you asked
exactly.
if you asked a manager, describe 3 qualities of my top performing SCs, they'll probably say the same thing. So
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of listeners, it's like, obviously, but then how often do candidates bring that level of preparation, bring that level of commitment, bring that level of, coachability, where they're asking not just the hiring manager or the recruiting manager on, if I didn't get the role, why didn't I get that role, right? A lot of these things are people probably take for granted and they just don't apply it. They understand that it applies in how they win deals, but they may not translate that to, this is how I'm going to get the best offer. And you guys are helping
Yeah.
them along that journey.
Yeah, and that's it. You bring up an interesting point there that it's worth bringing up. I think one of the most challenging things that we deal with, and any job seeker deals with throughout the process, is you go through it and you just don't get a lot of feedback. And even when you get feedback, it's not really meaningful or something that you can action on. And so that's got to be one of the most frustrating things as a job seeker. And so one of the things we do spend a lot of time on with the folks we work with is doing the mock interviews so that you can get feedback on your narrative, on your storytelling, on even just how you're showing up from a presence perspective and body language perspective in those conversations. And so that's a big part of it is just giving folks feedback. Because, if you're doing demos and you're selling, oftentimes you get feedback from other people on the
From your
call.
AEs.
Your AE, you get feedback, and so you can get better quickly. As a job seeker, it's much harder to do that. And so that's something that we try to really help people with as well.
This might be another one that most SCs are never demoing alone. There's always at least an
Yeah.
AE or somebody else. And this is the first time. We already talked about how they have to be the SC and the AE, and they are by themselves in this meeting. There's nobody there to fix the audience or change the tone or crack a joke if the conversation is not going well. So they have to do it all by themselves, which is daunting.
It can be.
It can be. Yeah. Yes, but you guys are there. You guys are helping them. All right, last question. In addition to observing so many SCs that are going through this transition phase of their lives, or many other professionals that are entering into sales engineering, you guys have a very good vantage point on, what's working, what's not working. You also have a very good vantage point into how the SC profession is changing, because you're watching the opportunities and the openings and what they are describing in their job descriptions. You're watching people go through that journey. What do you have a perspective on how our SC profession is evolving or going to evolve over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's been interesting. The role continues to evolve just like most roles. And I think especially with the acceleration and innovation with AI, it's just going to continue to evolve probably at an even faster pace. And I think some of the observations that we've seen, just working with a lot of SC teams and SCs and talking to SC leaders, is that one of the big shifts that continues, this isn't new, I guess, but it's continuing to happen, is the shift from the SC being much more focused on being a technical percenter to more of a value architect. And right, what that's meaning is that SCs are just having to get better at not just understanding the product well, but very much understanding how that product is going to translate into business outcomes. And that's even more important in this market where there's a lot of scrutiny over spend and software bloat and things like that, where CFOs aren't going to approve a purchase of any old software tool. You have to actually show that there's going to be a tangible business outcome as a result of purchasing this software. And so SCs are a big part of articulating what that outcome will be. So that's one of the main things that will continue to happen. And so what does that mean for an SC? That means that, yes, technical skills are helpful, but I think more important, the thing that people are sleeping on in SC roles is business acumen, understanding what the CEO of a large corporation cares about day in and day out, or what the CIO cares about, what the CFO cares about. Like, that is, I think, what's missing in what we see in working with a lot of SCs is they can understand the tech pretty well, but they don't understand how to connect the dots between the tech and the business outcomes.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I think the other thing that's interesting is that, I think given that there's a lot of efficiency, companies striving for efficiency and trying to, operate more lean, SCs are getting spread a bit thin across not only the sales cycle, but post-sales into working with existing accounts as well. And so there's definitely more of that happening. And so what that means, I think, is just that we're also going to be selling differently up front. If sales teams work with the customer ongoing to some extent, that's going to be a different approach that we take when actually positioning the deal and moving towards a purchase. At the same time, I think what we're also going to see is, and starting to see, is SCs getting pulled earlier into the sales cycle. buyers are very educated these days more than ever. Like now you have ChatGPT, you can just look up and do market research or competitive analysis very, very easily on different options and solutions and softwares that are out there. So for that reason, I think that the initial conversations that used to be just with an AE about the basic, what are your needs, what are your problems, right? Those conversations are going to start being deeper sooner, which I think will require a more knowledgeable, deeper solution expert in that conversation. So you're going to have an SE pulled earlier into a deal cycle as well. And there's a lot there. A couple more quick observations, though. The other thing that I think you're going to see more and more with SEs is that instead of like having to go really deep into a technical domain or technical skill or product, there's going to be more emphasis and value on technical breadth. And the reason I think that is going to happen is because with ChatGPT now, like it can write quality code very quickly. Right. And so software engineering is a whole different profession that I think is getting disrupted. Right. But for SEs, what that means that all software it's always been connected, but continues to be more interconnected. And I think where you're going to need that SC to really help connect all the dots is broadly across different solution sets and different ecosystems. It's going to be much more than just understanding a product very narrowly. You're going to have to understand the ecosystem a lot more, because that's what the AI, I think, it will be harder for the AI to do that. And that's where the human SC going to provide more value. And to that end, I think the most important thing, and again, the skill that I think a lot of SCs are sleeping on, especially SCs or people that want to be first-time SCs, they want to get their first SC role. A lot of them focus on tech skills, which, yes, you need some tech skills and some ability to understand product deeply, but the most important skills, I think, continue to be soft skills, because those are the skills that you cannot replicate with AI right now. You can go and ask AI anything about technology and it'll give you a pretty good response, but it's translating that to another human and creating that human connection and helping that human feel comfortable enough with a purchase decision to write the check and sign the contract to buy the software. And so I think the soft skills are what, as most SCs in their careers, regardless of where they are, should continue to focus on investing in those soft skills rather than just technical skills.
That's a really amazing. That's a list. I was going to say there's so much to unpack, but that's why I asked this question, because you guys have such a unique vantage point to observe. You're not just reading articles and seeing kind of what's trending. You're in the trenches with these candidates and with the hiring managers. But so much to unpack there. I totally agree with you. The pre-sales, the lines between pre-sales, post-sales are converging, and I think they'll continue to converge as businesses think about kind of net revenue retention versus just customer acquisition. It's a lot more valuable to not just bring new customers on, but make sure those customers are successful. So there's totally agree with soft skills, right? It's for anybody that has concerns about, the AI is going to take over my job as an SE. I mean, I don't really buy that. I keep saying that it's the human element. As long as people are buying from people, they're going to look for that human connection. It's going to be interesting over the next couple of years, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. And another observation I think that is interesting too, there's a lot of SC teams that have been spread thin and operate very lean. And I think with a lot of the layoff stuff, that's gotten even worse. But I think what's going to happen is that where it's going to get made up is actually on the AE headcount side. You're not going to need, I think, as many AEs as you used to.
Yeah.
Because your SC is going to be doing a lot more of the sales cycle. And so I think that's what we're starting to see. And we're actually seeing a lot of, and Salesforce is doing a lot of this too, but SC profiles are being hired for AE roles as first-time AEs because they prefer that more technical profile or solution-oriented profile versus just like your typical AE that might just be more about the relationship building and the scheduling and the pushing the deal forward and prospecting. They want somebody that has a bit more depth in the actual technology. So it's interesting to see how it all play out. It's evolving very quickly as you have macroeconomic things going on, you have AI going on, there's a lot going on. So we're going to see how it all plays out, I think, in the coming years, and I think it'll be fun to be part of.
It will be exciting, and there's a lot happening, and I truly appreciate that for anybody listening or SCs that you guys are supporting, both in taking them to the next level of their career or professionals that want to get into sales engineering. Love. I'm so glad they have you to support them in their journey. Please keep doing the great work you're doing for the SC community. Thank you for being on the podcast. Really appreciate both of your insights, and your point of view is so important and relevant for our listeners. So thank you for being on the podcast. Always great to see you guys.
Thanks so much.